The crystal chandeliers of the grand ballroom at the Eco Hotel in Lagos cast dancing shadows across 500 faces, but all eyes were fixed on one woman, me, Adaeze Okonkwo. My carefully constructed world was crumbling in real time, broadcasted on the massive LED screens flanking the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, my stepsister Chidinma's voice rang through the microphone, sweet as poison honey. Before we celebrate my engagement to Chief Emeka Nnamdi's son, I think everyone should know who my dear sister really is. The video began playing. Grainy footage from 10 years ago, me, younger, desperate, standing outside a rundown apartment in Mushin. My stomach twisted. How did she get this? That's right, Chidinma continued, her red lace asoebi shimmering under the lights. My sister Adaeze, who returned from London pretending to be some big marketing executive, was once arrested for fraud. She scammed elderly people out of their retirement savings. 3 million naira. All documented. The ballroom erupted. Gasps. Whispers. The clicking of phones capturing my shame. I stood frozen in my silver gown, the same one I'd spent 2 months' salary on, trying to fit into a life that was never meant to be mine. My stepmother, Mrs. Ngozi Okonkwo, sat at the head table, her face a mask of perfectly practiced shock. But her eyes glittered with triumph. This was her plan all along. Chief Nnamdi's son, Obinna, the man I'd been dating for 8 months, slowly turned away from me. His mother clutched her chest dramatically, as if my proximity might contaminate her bloodline. Adaeze spent 2 years in Kirikiri Prison. Chidinma's voice dropped to a theatrical whisper that somehow carried through every speaker. Our family took her back out of mercy. And how does she repay us? By trying to steal my fiancé. That's a lie. I finally found my voice, raw and breaking. Obinna and I were together first. You knew. But the crowd's judgment drowned my protests. Women I'd shared wine with last week pulled their handbags closer, as if I might steal them. Men who'd called me sister now looked through me like glass. My father would have defended me, but Papa died 3 years ago, leaving me at the mercy of the woman who'd waited 20 years to destroy me. Let me take you back to understand how I ended up here, publicly disgraced at what should have been my rival's triumph. My name is Adaeze Okonkwo, and I'm 32 years old. I grew up in Surulere, Lagos, the only child of Chief Emmanuel Okonkwo, a respected textile merchant. My mother died when I was 7 and Papa remarried Ngozi when I was 12. She came with 6-year-old Chidinma, a precocious girl who learned quickly how to manipulate her way into Papa's heart. Growing up, Chidinma got the best schools, the best clothes, the loudest praise. I got the responsibilities, helping in Papa's shop, managing household accounts, caring for relatives. Papa loved me, I knew that, but Ngozi's whispers were constant. Adaeze is so independent, she doesn't need as much attention. Chidinma is delicate, sensitive. When I turned 22, I fell in love with a man named Tund. He convinced me to invest my university savings in his import business. The business was a fraud scheme targeting elderly widows in Ikeja. When it collapsed, Tund disappeared, and I was left holding the evidence. The police didn't care about my tears or my ignorance. I was arrested, tried, and convicted. 2 years in Kirikiri Prison changes you. I learned to survive among women with stories far worse than mine. I also learned that mercy is a currency, and Ngozi spent it wisely, visiting me monthly, always with witnesses, building her narrative of the saintly stepmother who never abandoned her wayward stepdaughter. When I was released, Papa was sick.
Cancer, they said.
He made Ngozi promise to care for me. 3 months later, he was gone, and his will left everything equally split between Chidinma and me. But Ngozi controlled it all until we each married or turned 35. That was 3 years ago. I rebuilt myself slowly, working 2 jobs, taking evening classes, eventually landing a position at a marketing firm. I stayed away from romantic entanglements, focusing on redemption through respectability. Then I met Obinna at a business conference in Abuja 8 months ago. He was handsome, educated, kind. He knew nothing of my past, and I told myself I'd reveal it when the time was right. We fell in love, or so I thought. 2 months ago, I introduced him to my family. Chidinma took one look at him and decided he was hers. Now, standing in this ballroom with hundreds of eyes dissecting me, I understood. Ngozi didn't just want to humiliate me. She wanted to eliminate me entirely from the narrative of respectability. Security. Chidinma called out, her voice dripping with false concern. Please escort my sister out. She's clearly disturbed. 2 large men in black suits approached. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, nobody wanting to be associated with my contamination. Obinna finally spoke, his voice cold. Adaeze, how could you lie to me? My family, we have a reputation. I didn't lie, I whispered, tears finally breaking through. I was waiting for the right moment. The right moment? His laugh was bitter. There's never a right moment for this kind of truth. As security gripped my arms, I locked eyes with Ngozi. She raised her champagne glass in a subtle toast, her smile hidden behind the rim. I was marched through the ballroom, past the pitying looks and satisfied smirks, past the decorated tables laden with small chops and champagne, out into the humid Lagos night where the sounds of Victoria Island traffic felt like freedom compared to that suffocating space of judgment. But as I stood on the curb, my phone buzzing with messages from blocked numbers and deleted contacts, something hardened inside me. I'd survived prison. I'd survived loss. I could survive this. What I didn't know was that my survival would require confronting not just my stepmother's betrayal, but the entire architecture of lies she'd built around my father's death, my inheritance, and the real reason she needed me gone. What would you do if your past was exposed in front of everyone? Hit like if you've ever been judged unfairly and comment where you're watching from. What do you think happens next? Comment below. The water in my rented apartment in Yaba had been cut off again. I sat on the bathroom floor in yesterday's clothes, phone clutched in my hand, watching my life disintegrate through a screen. The video from the engagement party had gone viral. Not just on Instagram and Twitter, but on Nigerian gossip blogs with headlines like "Prison Bird Tries to Steal Society Sister's Fiancé" and "The Fraud Queen of Lagos Exposed." Someone had created a WhatsApp group called Adaeze's Greatest Scams, with over 2,000 members.
My phone rang.
I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway. Maybe desperation makes you stupid. Ada, it's Ani Chioma. My father's sister. The last person I'd expected to hear from. Auntie. My voice cracked. I hadn't cried yet today, a small victory. What is this nonsense I'm seeing online? Your father is turning in his grave. The accusation hit like a slap. Auntie, you know what happened wasn't. I know nothing except that you've brought shame on the Okonkwo name. Your father built a legacy, and you've burned it down for what? A man? A rich man you thought would erase your past. Obinna and I were together before Chidinma. It doesn't matter who was first. Her voice rose, shrill with anger. What matters is that everyone knows you're a criminal. My friends at church can't even look at me. Do you know what that feels like? I did. I'd been living it for 10 years. Ani, please. I just need somewhere to stay for a few days. Just until. The line went dead. I pulled myself up from the bathroom floor and caught my reflection in the cracked mirror. The woman staring back looked hollowed out, her eyes bruised with sleeplessness, her natural hair matted from 3 days without proper care. This wasn't the polished Adaeze who'd walked into that ballroom. This was the woman I'd tried so hard to bury. My laptop sat on the floor by my mattress. I'd sold my bed frame last month to pay rent. I opened it to find 17 new emails. 14 were from strangers calling me everything from Ashir to daughter of Jezebel.
2 were marketing spam.
The last one made my breath catch. Subject: Urgent. Your position at Apex Marketing. Dear Ms. Okonkwo, due to recent events that have come to light regarding your criminal history, which you failed to disclose during the hiring process, we must terminate your employment effective immediately. Please return all company property by end of business today. Regards, Folashade Adelik Human Resources Director. I'd lost my job. The position I'd fought for, interviewed 3 times for, proven myself worthy of.
Gone.
My phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. Criminal. You deserve everything you get. Then another. God is punishing you for your sins. And another. Your father should have drowned you at birth. I turned off my phone and sat in the silence of my apartment. The ceiling fan wheezed, its unbalanced blades creating a rhythmic knocking that matched my heartbeat. Outside, Lagos continued its chaos. Generators rumbling, vendors shouting, cars honking in the eternal traffic jam that was my neighborhood. A knock on my door made me jump. For a wild moment, I thought it might be Obinna, come to apologize, to tell me he understood that love conquered judgment. Instead, it was my landlord, Mr. Adaeze, his round face set in grim determination. Adaeze, I'm sorry, but I've been getting complaints from other tenants. They say you're a criminal, that you might steal from them or bring trouble. I need you to leave. Mr. Adaeze, please. I've paid rent through the end of the month. I've never caused any trouble here. He couldn't meet my eyes. I'll refund your deposit. But you need to be out by tomorrow evening. I have a business to run, and your presence is affecting it. After he left, I finally cried. Not the delicate tears of a woman in a Nollywood movie, but ugly, gasping sobs that shook my entire body. I cried for my father, who'd believed in second chances. I cried for the girl I'd been before Tund, before prison, before I learned that the world doesn't forgive women like me. I cried for the future I'd built so carefully, now demolished in one evening of calculated cruelty. When the tears finally stopped, I made a decision. I would go see Ngozi. Not to beg. I'd learned in prison that begging only feeds the appetite of those who enjoy your suffering. But to understand. To hear from her own mouth why she hated me so much that she'd orchestrated my complete destruction. I arrived at the family house in Ikoyi the next afternoon. The 3-story mansion my father built still looked like a castle to me, its white walls gleaming in the harsh sunlight, the compound gates decorated with elaborate ironwork. The security guard, Ibrahim, had known me since I was a teenager. Auntie Adaeze. His voice held pity. Madam say she no day for you. Tell her I'm not leaving until she sees me. Ibrahim made the call. I waited under the scorching sun, sweat soaking through my cotton blouse, while other guards whispered and pointed. Finally, the gate swung open. Ngozi received me in the living room, surrounded by luxury my father's money had bought. She wore a flowing purple babou, her head wrap perfectly tied, her manicured nails drumming against the leather armrest of Papa's favorite chair. You have nerve coming here, she said without greeting. Why? I asked simply. Why destroy me like this? Wasn't it enough that you turned Papa against me? That you've controlled my inheritance? Why did you have to take everything? She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Take everything? Child, you still don't understand. I haven't taken anything. I've simply claimed what was always meant to be Chidinma's. Papa left his estate to both of us equally. Your father was a fool in his old age. She stood, moving to the window that overlooked the pool where I'd learned to swim. He thought he could force me to treat you as my daughter. But you were never my daughter. You were the reminder that I was second choice, that he loved your mother more than he ever loved me. The honesty stunned me. So, you punish me for Papa's feelings? I protected what was mine. She turned back, her face cold. Chidinma deserves the best schools, the best marriage, the best life. Your presence, your claims to his legacy, they threatened that. So yes, when you brought Obinna home and I saw how perfect he was for my daughter, I made a choice. You've been planning this since your father died. She smiled. Every piece of evidence about your past, every contact at that prison, every relationship you built, I've been watching, waiting for the right moment to use it. The video was very easy to obtain. Money opens many doors, Adaeze. Even prison records can be accessed if you know the right people. She moved closer, her perfume cloying. And now Chidinma will marry into the Nnamdi family, one of the wealthiest in Lagos. Your share of the inheritance will eventually come to me when you fail to marry by 35, which, given your now ruined reputation, seems certain. Everything works out as it should. Papa would hate what you've become. Something flickered in her eyes. Pain, maybe, or rage. Your father is dead, and the dead don't dictate to the living. I left the house understanding that I was fighting a woman who'd spent 20 years perfecting her revenge. As I walked through the gates, my phone, which I'd turned back on, rang with an unknown number. Is this Adaeze Okonkwo? A woman's voice, professional, unfamiliar. Yes. My name is Kamara Mensah. I'm an investigative journalist with African Voices News. I've been following your story, and I think there's more to it than what's being reported. I'd like to speak with you. Hope flickered, dangerous and fragile. Why would you help me? I'm not sure I am helping you, but I'm interested in the truth. And something about this whole situation feels orchestrated.
Can we meet?
I agreed to meet her the next day at a cafe in Lekki. As I hung up, I noticed a black Mercedes parked across the street from the compound. Inside, I could just make out a figure watching the house. When our eyes met, the car pulled away quickly. Someone else was watching the Okonkwo family. But who?
And why?
What do you think happens next? Comment below. The cafe in Lekki smelled of roasted coffee and fresh bread, an oasis of normalcy in my upturned life. I'd arrived 30 minutes early, sitting in the corner with my back to the wall like I'd learned in prison. Always know your exits. Always see who's coming. Kamara Mensah arrived exactly on time. She was tall, dark-skinned, her hair in neat cornrows that fell to her shoulders. She carried herself with the confidence of someone who'd earned her place in a male-dominated field. Her eyes, sharp and assessing, scanned the cafe before settling on me. Adaeze. She extended her hand. Her grip was firm, professional. Thank you for meeting me. I'm not sure why you want to help someone everyone in Lagos thinks is a criminal. She sat down, pulling out a leather notebook and a voice recorder. May I? I nodded. I don't know yet if I'm helping you, she said, echoing our phone conversation. But I've been investigating the Nnamdi family for 6 months on an unrelated corruption story. When your video went viral, something felt wrong. The timing, the production quality, the way it spread so quickly across specific platforms, it had the hallmarks of a coordinated attack. My stepmother admitted she planned it. Kamara's eyebrows rose. She told you directly? She wanted me to know. I think she enjoys it. I wrapped my hands around my coffee cup, seeking warmth despite the Lagos heat. She's been plotting since my father died. This was just the final move. Tell me about your inheritance. I explained the will, the stipulation that Chidinma and I each received our share when we married or turned 35, with Ngozi controlling the estate until then. And you turned 35 in 3 years?
Yes.
But Chidinma is only 26. If Ngozi can destroy my reputation so thoroughly that I never marry, she controls my half for another 9 years. That's a lot of money. Papa's textile business alone generates millions annually. Kamara made notes, her pen moving rapidly. What if you die? The question hung in the air like smoke.
What?
Your father's will. What happens to your share if you die before 35? I don't know. I never thought. The room suddenly felt smaller, the air thinner. You think Ngozi would kill me? I think money makes people do unthinkable things. Kamara's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowned, then showed me the screen. It was a photo of me leaving the Ikoyi house yesterday. The caption, "Prison bird returns to scene of crime, planning her next heist?" They're following you, Kamara said. Multiple social media accounts posting your movements in real time. This level of surveillance costs money. Someone's funding it. My hands started shaking. I just want my life back. I don't even care about the money anymore. But they think you do, and that makes you dangerous to them. She leaned forward. Adaeze, I need to ask you something, and I need the truth. Did you actually commit the fraud you were convicted for? The question I'd been avoiding for 10 years. In prison, claiming innocence made you weak. Outside, the conviction spoke for itself. But sitting across from this woman who might be my only ally, I had to decide. The truth, or the story I'd told myself to survive. I was guilty of being stupid and in love, I said finally. My boyfriend, Tund, ran the scheme. I helped him set up bank accounts, carry documents, meet with the targets. I thought we were running a legitimate import business. When the police came, he vanished with all the money. I had no evidence to prove my ignorance, and his testimony, given in exchange for immunity, painted me as the mastermind. Do you have any way to prove this now?
No.
Tund disappeared. The victims died or moved on. It's been 10 years. Kamara studied me for a long moment. I believe you. The relief was so sudden I nearly cried. Why? Because I've seen your prison records. You were a model inmate, helped other women with literacy programs, never had a single disciplinary action. Career criminals don't behave that way. And because your stepmother's eagerness to destroy you suggests she's hiding something much worse. Before I could respond, her phone rang. She answered, her face growing serious as she listened.
When?
Are you sure? Don't touch anything. I'm coming now. She hung up, already gathering her things. That was my research assistant. Someone broke into my office last night and destroyed all my files on the Nnamdi family investigation. That can't be coincidence.
No.
She paused at the door. Adaeze, I need to ask you something important. Are you willing to fight back? Really fight, even if it means exposing everything, your past, your family's secrets, all of it.
Was I?
Fighting meant more pain, more exposure, more judgment. But it also meant the possibility of truth. Yes, I said. I'm tired of running from my past. Good. Because I think your stepmother's betrayal is just the surface. There's something deeper here, connecting to the Nnamdi family, to your father's death, to business deals you probably don't even know about. If we pull this thread, we might unravel the whole thing. But it's dangerous. More dangerous than what I'm already facing? Her smile was grim. Much more. We agreed to meet again in 2 days, giving Kamara time to assess the damage to her office and recover backup files. As I left the cafe, I felt something I hadn't experienced in days. Purpose. But the feeling died when I returned to my apartment to find the door ajar. Someone had ransacked everything. My clothes were torn from the closet, my mattress slashed, my laptop smashed on the floor. Spray painted on the wall in red letters. Thieves die in Lagos. I should have called the police. Instead, I called the only person I thought might still care, my childhood friend Zainab, who I'd lost touch with after my arrest. Ada? Her voice was cautious when she answered. I saw what happened. I'm so sorry. Zainab, someone broke into my apartment. Can I stay with you? Just for a few nights. The pause was too long. Ada, I want to help, but my husband, he says it's not a good idea. With the children and everything. You understand, right? I understood perfectly. I thanked her and hung up. I spent that night in a budget hotel in Surulere, the kind where the walls were thin and the sheets questionable. As I lay in the darkness, listening to the sounds of other people's lives through paper-thin walls, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Stop talking to journalists. Stop digging. Leave Lagos. This is your only warning. I deleted the message and made a decision. If they wanted to scare me into silence, they have to do better than that. Prison taught me that the only way out of fear is through it. The next morning, I received an unexpected call from Chidinma herself. Sister, she said, her voice sickeningly sweet. I heard about your apartment.
Such a shame.
I wanted to let you know that if you apologize publicly, admit that you tried to seduce Obinna away from me, that your criminal past made you unstable. Mother might be willing to help you. Maybe a small allowance, enough to start fresh somewhere far from Lagos. What's the real offer, Chidinma? Her voice hardened. Disappear. Take the money and vanish. Because if you don't, what happened at the engagement party will look like mercy compared to what comes next. Is that a threat? It's family advice. She hung up. I sat on the hotel bed, weighing my options. I could take their money, leave Lagos, start over somewhere like Accra or Nairobi where nobody knew my story. I could build a quiet life, anonymous and safe. Or I could stay and fight, risking everything for a truth I wasn't even sure I could prove. My phone buzzed again. Another message. Your friend the journalist? Her brakes might fail. Accidents happen in Lagos traffic. Think about it. They were threatening Kamara now. This had escalated from personal vendetta to something far more dangerous. I called Kamara immediately. They're threatening you. You need to be careful. I know. My car was vandalized last night. She sounded more angry than scared. Adaeze, I found something in my backup files. Your father's death, the cancer that killed him. I found the medical records. Something doesn't add up. Can you meet me in 2 hours? There's someone I need you to talk to. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who loves emotional drama. What do you think happens next? Comment below. The herbalist shop was tucked in a narrow street in Mushin, far from the gleaming towers of Victoria Island where deals were made over champagne. Here, the Lagos most tourists never saw thrived in its raw authenticity. Women selling pepper in pyramids of red and gold, mechanics working on cars half spilled onto the road, children playing football with a crushed plastic bottle. This is Baba Ademola, Kamara said as we entered the shop, fragrant with dried herbs and burning incense. He was your father's doctor, his real doctor. The man who emerged from the back room looked ancient, his face a map of wrinkles, his eyes sharp despite their cloudiness. He studied me with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. Emmanuel's daughter, he said in Yoruba-accented English. You have his eyes. Strong eyes. Your father was a good man. You treated him? I treated him for many things over 30 years. High blood pressure, stress, the usual troubles of a successful man. But not cancer. Never cancer. The room tilted. What? Baba Ademola sat down slowly, gesturing for us to do the same. 6 months before your father died, Mrs. Ngozi brought him to me. She said he was seeing a specialist at Lagos University Teaching Hospital for stomach cancer. She wanted my herbs to help with the pain and nausea from chemotherapy. And? Kamara prompted. I examined him. There was no cancer. I've been treating cancer for 40 years, I know the signs. Your father was tired, stressed, perhaps depressed, but not dying. He paused, his next words careful. I told Mrs. Ngozi this. She became very angry. She said I was calling her a liar, that her husband trusted Western doctors more than traditional medicine. She took him away and never brought him back. But he died of cancer, I whispered. I saw the death certificate. Stage 4 stomach cancer. Death certificates can be purchased in Lagos for the right price, Kamara said gently. I've seen it done for insurance fraud, inheritance schemes, even to avoid murder investigations. You think? I couldn't say it. Couldn't voice the horror forming in my mind. Baba Ademola's face held deep sadness. 2 weeks before your father died, he came to my shop alone. He was very sick, vomiting, weakness, confusion. He said Ngozi was giving him special medicine from his cancer doctor, but it was making him worse. I tested the medicine. It was poison. Slow-acting, accumulating in his organs. By the time he came to me, it was too late. The world fractured. Everything I thought I knew about my father's death, about the months of watching him waste away, believing it was the cruel randomness of disease. All of it was a lie. Why didn't you go to the police? My voice came from somewhere far away. I tried. Your father was already in hospital, unconscious. I told the police there. They took a statement and did nothing. Mrs. Ngozi had paid them well. I am just an old herbalist in Mushin. Who would believe me over a respected society wife? And my father? Did he know? In his last days, yes. He tried to change his will, to protect you. But he was too weak to sign the new documents. He made me promise to tell you if anything happened to him, but by the time I found you, you were in prison. I tried to visit, but they said you refused all visitors except family. I had refused. Prison made me hard, suspicious. I'd turned away everyone except Ngozi, who visited monthly with her poisonous kindness, building her narrative of redemption while I sat in a cell. Kamara placed a hand on my shoulder. Baba Ademola has agreed to give a statement. But it's not enough. We need the medical records from LUTH, the death certificate, toxicology reports. There won't be any, I said bitterly. She'll have destroyed or altered everything. Perhaps, Baba, Ademola said. But poison leaves traces. If we could exhume your father's body.
No.
The word came out sharp. I can't do that to him. Adaeze, Kamara said carefully, if what Baba Ademola says is true, your stepmother murdered your father for his money. She's now destroyed your life and is threatening mine. How many more people will she hurt if we don't stop her? Before I could answer, my phone rang. A Lagos number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. Adaeze Okonkwo? A man's voice, professional, cold. Yes. This is Detective Okafor from the Ikoyi police station. We need you to come in for questioning regarding the theft of jewelry from the Okonkwo family residence. Mrs. Ngozi Okonkwo has filed a report stating that valuable pieces are missing, and security footage shows you were the last person to visit the house 3 days ago. My blood ran cold. I didn't steal anything. That's what they all say. Can you come to the station this afternoon, or should we send officers to collect you? I looked at Kamara, who'd been listening. She shook her head slightly, a warning. I'll come this afternoon with my lawyer. I lied, buying time. After hanging up, Kamara said, she's boxing you in. First the public shame, then the job loss, now criminal charges. If you're arrested again, nobody will believe anything you say. What do? We need to move faster than she can. I have contacts at LUTH, someone who might access the medical records. But Adaeze, if we do this, if we go public with accusations of murder, there's no going back. They'll come after you, with everything they have. They already are. We spent the next 3 hours planning. Kamara would work her sources at LUTH and the police, looking for any records of my father's treatment or lack thereof. I would try to find the original will, the one Papa had tried to change before he died. Where would he have kept important documents? Kamara asked. His study at the house. But Ngozi has it locked. She claimed she was preserving it as a shrine to his memory. More likely preserving evidence. We need to get in there.
How?
I'm not allowed on the property, and after the theft charges, they'll be watching for me. A slow smile spread across Kamara's face. Who said you're going in through the front door? That night, we stood in the alley behind the Okonkwo compound. The wall was high, but there was a section near the servants' quarters where old service ladders were stored. In my teenage years, I'd snuck out this way to meet friends at night. I prayed the route still existed. This is insane, I whispered as Kamara boosted me up. If they catch me, it proves everything Ngozi says about me. Then don't get caught. I pull myself over the wall, dropping into the familiar garden I'd played in as a child. The house was mostly dark except for lights in the living room where Ngozi liked to watch her Telemundo novellas. I crept around to the study window, miraculously, still the same old frame that never quite closed properly. Inside, Papa's study looked frozen in time. His leather chair, his books, his reading glasses on the desk where he'd left them 3 years ago. For a moment, grief overwhelmed me. Then I remembered why I was here. I searched the desk drawers systematically, careful to leave things as I found them. Legal documents, business contracts, old photographs. Nothing that looked like a revised will. I was about to give up when I noticed something odd. The bottom drawer seemed shallower than the others. False bottom. Papa had shown me this once, his secret hiding place for important documents. I found the release mechanism and pulled out a manila envelope. Inside, a handwritten letter dated 2 days before Papa's death, addressed to his lawyer, Mr. Akinlade. It outlined his suspicions about Ngozi, his desire to change his will to protect me, and instructions to investigate if anything happened to him. There was also a USB drive. I was photographing the letter with my phone when I heard voices, Ngozi and Chidinma, approaching the study. Mother, you're being paranoid. Adaeze wouldn't dare come back here. That journalist is making her bold. We need to accelerate our timeline. The Nnamdi wedding must happen before she digs too deep. What about the theft charges? The police will handle it. I've paid them enough. Once she's arrested, nobody will believe anything that Herbalist says. And if the journalist continues to be a problem, well, accidents happen. They were right outside the door. I had nowhere to hide. The study had only one entrance, and the window mechanism was loud. If they came in, I was trapped. The doorknob turned. Then, a miracle, the security alarm sounded. Someone was at the front gate. Ngozi cursed and hurried toward the entrance, Chidinma following. I didn't wait. I went out the window, clutching the envelope, and ran through the garden. Behind me, I heard shouting. They discovered the open window. I scaled the wall faster than I thought possible, dropping into the alley where Kamara waited in a running car. Drive, I gasped, tumbling into the passenger seat. She didn't ask questions, just hit the accelerator. We were 5 blocks away before I could breathe properly. Did you get it? I held up the envelope. Better than I hoped. My father knew. He tried to stop her. Back at Kamara's apartment, a modest flat in Yaba with multiple locks and a doorman she trusted.
Continue.
We examined the contents more carefully. The USB drive contained video files. Papa had been recording conversations with Ngozi in his final days, trying to gather evidence. She was doing it gradually. Papa's weak voice came through the laptop speakers. The medicine, she says, is from the doctor. I've never met this doctor. When I ask to go with her to appointments, she says I'm too sick to travel. Baba, Ademala thinks I'm being poisoned. My own wife. His voice broke, and I had to pause the video, tears streaming down my face. Kamara gripped my hand. Keep watching. We need to see everything. The next video was dated 3 days later. Papa looked worse, his skin gray, his hands shaking. If I die, someone must protect Adaeze. Ngozi has convinced Chidinma that the money should all be hers. She says Adaeze is not really my daughter, that I owe her nothing. But Adaeze is my blood, my heart, her mother. The video cut off abruptly. The next file wouldn't open, corrupted or deliberately damaged. There's enough here, Kamara said. Combined with Baba Ademala's testimony and the letter, we can go to the police. The real police, not the ones on Ngozi's payroll. I have contacts at the federal level. My phone rang. Mr. Akinlade, Papa's lawyer. I'd forgotten about him. Miss Adaeze, I heard about the troubles you're facing. I want you to know I never believed those accusations at the engagement party. Your father spoke very highly of you always. Mr. Akinlade, I found something. A letter Papa wrote to you before he died. About changing his will. Silence. Then, you have it? The letter?
Yes.
And video evidence that suggests my stepmother. Don't say another word on this phone. His voice was urgent. Where are you? I need to see this evidence immediately. If what you're suggesting is true, your life is in danger. We arranged to meet at his office in Victoria Island the next morning. As I hung up, relief washed through me. Finally, an ally with the legal authority to help. Something's wrong, Kamara said, her journalist's instinct sharp. Why would he call you now, after 3 years of silence? How did he even get your number? He's Papa's lawyer. He must have kept my contact information. Or Ngozi gave it to him. She pulled up her laptop. Let me check something. She ran searches on Mr. Akinlade, looking for connections to the Nnamdi family or recent financial transactions. What she found made my blood run cold. Adaeze, Akinlade's firm received a 5 million naira retainer from Ngozi 3 months ago. And look at this. He's listed as the legal consultant for the Nnamdi business empire.
He's not your ally.
He's one of them. The trap was obvious now. They wanted the evidence. Once they had it, they could destroy it, and me. We can't go to that meeting, I said.
No.
But we can use it. Kamara's eyes glinted with the thrill of the hunt. If Akinlade is dirty, and he's connected to both Ngozi and the Nnamdis, then my original investigation was right. There's a larger corruption network at play. Your father's murder, your destruction, it's all part of protecting something bigger. What could be bigger than inheritance fraud? Money laundering, political corruption, government contracts. She pulled up files from her damaged investigation. The Nnamdi family has been awarded 17 major construction contracts in the past 3 years, all with inflated budgets. Your father's textile business, did it have government contracts?
Yes.
for school uniforms across Lagos State. Papa was very proud of that contract. And after he died, who took over the business? Understanding dawned. Ngozi. She's been running it through a management company. A management company that I'm betting has connections to the Nnamdis. Adaeze, I think your father discovered they were using his business to launder money. When he threatened to expose them, they had him killed. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. My father's growing paranoia in his final months. His arguments with Ngozi about business decisions I hadn't understood. His insistence on keeping me away from the company, claiming he wanted me to build my own path. He'd been trying to protect me. We need to go public with this, I said. Now, before they can stop us. We need more proof. The videos and letter establish murder, but not the larger conspiracy. If we go public too soon, they'll claim we're making wild accusations to cover your theft charges. We need financial records, emails, something that connects the dots undeniably. Then we get into the business records. Papa kept everything on secure servers. If I can access his accounts. You think Ngozi hasn't changed all the passwords? She had. But I remembered something else. Papa had a backup routine. Every month, he'd copy important files to an external drive and give it to someone he trusted for safekeeping. If those drives still exist. Who did he give them to? I thought back to conversations about Papa's paranoia, his distrust of banks and cloud storage. Then I remembered. His driver, Chikwudi. Papa trusted him completely. He retired when Papa died and moved back to his village in Anambra State. Can you reach him? I tried Chikwidi's number. Miraculously, it still worked. The old man's voice, when he answered, was warm with recognition and sadness. Nwani Oma, Adaeze. I heard what they're doing to you. It is wicked, very wicked. Uncle Chikwudi, I need your help. Do you still have the backup drives Papa gave you? All of them. Every month for 3 years, even after he died. I promised him I would keep them safe. He said someday, someone might need them to find the truth. Can I come get them? It's urgent. Come to Enugu. My village in Anambra is too remote, no good roads. I will meet you in Enugu tomorrow with the drives. After we hung up, Kamara began making travel arrangements. We'll drive. Flying leaves too clear a trail, and airports have cameras everywhere. It's about 8 hours to Enugu. We leave before dawn. That night, unable to sleep, I scrolled through social media. The hashtag Adaeze the Thief was trending. Someone had created a detailed thread claiming I'd stolen from multiple employers over the years, complete with fabricated evidence. The comments were vicious. But buried in the attacks, I found something unexpected. A message from Obinna. Adaeze, I know you won't believe me, but I didn't know about the video. Chidima told me it was a surprise for the guests. After you left, she admitted she'd planned it. I'm starting to question everything she's told me.
Can we talk?
Please. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond, to tell him everything, to have him on my side. But Kamara's warning echoed. Trust no one. I didn't reply. At 4 a.m., we left Lagos in Kamara's car, the city still shrouded in pre-dawn darkness. As we joined the few vehicles on the expressway heading east, I felt the weight of what we were doing. We were going up against one of the wealthiest families in Nigeria, against my stepmother who'd already killed once, against a system of corruption that had thrived for decades. But we had the truth. And sometimes that was enough. Halfway to Enugu, Kamara's phone rang. Her face went pale as she listened.
What?
I asked when she hung up. That was my editor. Baba Ademola was found dead in his shop this morning. They're calling it a robbery gone wrong. The herbalist who'd tried to help my father, who'd agreed to give a statement about the poisoning, murdered. The message was clear. They were eliminating witnesses. Chikwudi, I whispered. If they know we're going to him. Kamara pressed the accelerator harder. We had to reach Enugu before they reached him. Comment your thoughts on her redemption below. What do you think happens next? Comment below. We arrived in Enugu as afternoon sun blazed across the coal city's red earth. The journey had been tense, constantly checking mirrors for vehicles following us, pulling off at random rest stops to see if anyone stopped behind us. Paranoia, perhaps. Or survival instinct. Chikwudi had asked us to meet at a hotel in Independence Layout, a busy commercial area where we could blend into crowds. But when we arrived, the lobby was eerily quiet except for a receptionist who looked up sharply when we entered. "We're here to meet someone," Kamara said casually. "Chikwudi Okonkwo? Room 302. He checked in 2 hours ago." The receptionist's eyes lingered on us too long, and I saw her hand move toward her phone. "Something's wrong," I whispered as we headed to the elevator. We knocked on room 302. No answer. Kamara tried the handle, unlocked. Inside, the room looked untouched except for one detail that made my stomach drop: a window wide open, curtains billowing in the breeze, and on the bed, a leather satchel. Inside the satchel, 3 external hard drives, carefully labeled with dates spanning 3 years. Papa's backup files. But no Chikwudi. "He left these for us," Kamara said, examining the room. "Look, there's no luggage, no personal items. He came here, waited until he saw us arrive, and left the drives for us to find." Why wouldn't he wait? Because he's smart enough to know they're watching. If he meets with us, he becomes a target. This way, we get what we need, and he can disappear. We left quickly, not waiting to see if whoever was watching would follow. Back in the car, Kamara drove to an internet cafe on the outskirts of town, the kind frequented by students and gamers, where 2 more women with a laptop wouldn't attract attention. We plugged in the first drive. Financial records from my father's textile business flooded the screen: invoices, contracts, payment schedules. Papa had been meticulous, documenting everything. "Look at this." Kamara pointed to a series of transactions from 2 years ago. "Your father's company received payment for 50,000 school uniforms. But the purchase orders show only 30,000 were actually ordered by the Lagos State Education Board. Where did the money for the extra 20,000 uniforms go?" I scrolled through related documents. It went to a company called Max Growth Ventures. And Max Growth made payments to. My breath caught. To Ngozi, Chidinma, Mr. Akinlade, and 3 members of the Nnamdi family. "Money laundering through fake contracts," Kamara said, her fingers flying across her keyboard as she cross-referenced names and companies. "They inflate government contracts, pocket the difference, and distribute it through shell companies. Your father's legitimate business was the perfect front. And when he discovered it, they killed him before he could expose them." The second drive contained emails. Papa confronting Ngozi about the discrepancies. Ngozi's responses, initially defensive, then threatening. "You don't understand what you're interfering with. These people don't forgive betrayal. Think of Adaeze. Do you want her to suffer for your righteousness?" Papa's reply: "I won't let criminals use my name to steal from children. I'm going to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission next week. Take Chidinma and leave. I'll give you that mercy for the years we shared. But I won't protect you anymore." The email was dated 3 days before he started getting sick. "She poisoned him to prevent him from going to the EFCC," I said, my voice hollow. "And she used me as a threat to try to stop him first." The third drive held video files, security footage from Papa's office showing Ngozi and Chidinma meeting with Emeka Nnamdi, Obinna's father. The audio was damning. "We need Emmanuel silenced." Emeka's voice, cold and businesslike. "The contracts we've secured through his company have brought in 200 million naira in the past year. We can't let one man's conscience destroy that." "I'll handle my husband," Ngozi replied. "But I want assurances. When he's gone, the business comes to me, and Chidinma marries into your family. That was our agreement. Your daughter can marry my son once we're certain there are no loose ends." "What about the other daughter, Adaeze?" "She's currently in prison. When she gets out, I'll keep her under control. She worships her father. She won't question what I tell her about his death." Chidinma's voice, younger but equally calculating. "And if she does become a problem? Then she'll have an accident," Ngozi said simply. "People die in Lagos every day." I was watching my own murder being planned, casually discussed like a business transaction. "We have everything," Kamara breathed. "This is enough to bring them all down." The EFCC, the police, the media, this is explosive. But I was thinking about something else. They've been planning to kill me for 3 years. Every kindness Ngozi showed me, every prison visit, every promise to help me rebuild my life, it was all lies to keep me docile until they were ready to eliminate me. Adaeze, we need to move fast. They know we're in Enugu, they probably know we've met with Chikwudi. We need to get this evidence somewhere safe and public before they can stop us. We drove back toward Lagos, but Kamara took a detour to Asaba, Delta State, where she had a trusted colleague at a television station. We'll give them copies of everything. Once it's in the hands of the media, we're safer. They can't kill everyone. The television station sat in a busy commercial district. We met with Kamara's colleague, a producer named Yemi, who'd worked with her on previous investigative stories. His eyes widened as he reviewed the files. This is massive. The Nnamdi family has contracts with half the government agencies in Nigeria. If this goes public, it'll trigger a national scandal. How fast can you air it? Kamara asked. We'll need to verify everything, get legal clearance, 48 hours minimum. But once we run it, there's no going back. We don't have 48 hours, I said. They're trying to frame me for theft. Once I'm arrested, anything I say will be discredited. Yemi considered this. What if we do a live special report? No time for them to get injunctions or pressure our management. We announce it an hour before, build social media buzz, then go live with everything. It's risky, but it's your best chance. We agreed on a plan. Tomorrow evening at 8 p.m., prime time for Nigerian television. Yemi would promote it as a special investigation into government corruption without naming names until we were live. Kamara and I would appear on camera to present the evidence. As we left the station, my phone rang. Obinna again. This time, I answered. Adaeze, thank God. Where are you? Chidinma is furious. She knows you took something from a house. She and my father have been in closed meetings all day. Something is wrong, very wrong. Obinna, I need you to listen to me carefully. Your father and my stepmother are involved in massive corruption and murder. Tomorrow at 8 p.m., we're exposing everything on national television. If you want to protect yourself, you need to distance yourself from them now. Silence. Then, murder? Adaeze, what are you talking about? My father. They killed him because he discovered they were using his business to launder money from inflated government contracts. I have proof, videos, emails, financial records. Your father personally ordered my father's death. That's insane. My father is a respected businessman. Your father is a criminal. And if you stay connected to him, when this story breaks, you'll go down too. I'm trying to save you, Obinna. For what we had, for what we could have been. Another long silence. If this is true, God, Adaeze, if this is true, then everything, my entire life is built on lies.
Yes.
Welcome to my world. What can I do? Stay away from your father and from Chidinma. Don't tell them we spoke. After the broadcast, talk to a lawyer. Cooperate with the EFCC investigation. Save yourself because no one else will. After hanging up, Kamara looked at me with approval. That was smart. If he turns on them, we have someone on the inside willing to testify. We spent that night in a small hotel in Asaba, taking turns sleeping, one of us always watching the door. At dawn, Kamara's phone exploded with messages. The television station had been raided overnight by police claiming to search for illegal broadcasting equipment. Yemi had been arrested. They found out, Kamara said, her face pale. Someone at the station must have told them. The broadcast won't happen, at least not there. She was already on her phone calling contacts, but we have other options. Social media, YouTube, international press. We just need to stay alive long enough to get the story out. A knock at our door made us both freeze. It was too early for housekeeping. Who is it? Kamara called. Police. Open up. We have a warrant for the arrest of Adaeze Okonkwo for theft and destruction of property. They'd found us. In Asaba, hundreds of kilometers from Lagos, they tracked us down within hours. The window? I whispered. We were on the second floor, but there was a ledge that might lead to the adjacent building. But before we could move, the door burst open. They hadn't waited for us to comply. Four officers, led by a woman in plain clothes who carried herself with authority. Adaeze Okonkwo, you're under arrest. She pulled out handcuffs. You have the right to remain silent, though in Nigeria, that won't help you much. Kamara stepped between us. On what charges? Where's your warrant? The woman held up a document. Theft, breaking and entering, destruction of valuable property. Mrs. Ngozi Okonkwo has filed a detailed complaint with video evidence of Miss Okonkwo trespassing on her property. That property belongs half to Adaeze. She has every right. Not according to the property deeds, which list Mrs. Ngozi Okonkwo as sole owner. Mr. Emmanuel Okonkwo's will left everything to his wife, with provisions for his daughters only if they meet certain conditions. Adaeze has met none of those conditions. It was another lie, but a legal one. Somehow, they'd altered the official documents to erase my inheritance entirely. As they handcuffed me, I looked at Kamara. Get the story out. Don't let them bury this. I won't. I promise. They led me to a waiting van. Inside sat someone I hadn't expected, Chidinma, dressed in an elegant yellow dress, looking fresh and rested while I wore 2-day-old clothes and desperation. Hello, sister, she said sweetly. Did you really think you could steal from us and get away with it? Mother always said you were smart, but you're just desperate. And desperate people make mistakes. I didn't steal anything except proof of what you and Ngozi did to my father. She laughed. You have no proof of anything. That senile herbalist is dead. The journalist will be discredited. And those hard drives you stole? We have copies of everything on them. When we present them in court, edited appropriately, they'll show only that Papa was losing his mind in his final days, paranoid and confused. A tragedy, really. There are backups. People who will disappear, just like that driver. We have resources you can't imagine, Adaeze. This is what you've never understood. We're not just fighting you. We own the system, the police, the courts, the media. You're an insect trying to fight an elephant. The van started moving. Through the window, I watched Asaba slip past, wondering if I'd ever see freedom again. But I wasn't defeated. Not yet. Because Chidinma had made one mistake in her gloating. She'd confirmed that they'd already edited the drives. Which meant they didn't know about the copies Kamara had made and distributed. They didn't know about Obinna's growing doubts. They didn't know about the international journalist contacts Kamara had. They thought they'd won. But the battle wasn't over. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the story with someone who loves emotional drama. What do you think happens next? Comment below. The holding cell at Asaba police station smelled of despair, sweat, urine, and the acrid scent of fear. I shared the space with 3 other women, each with their own story of how Nigerian justice had failed them. One had been waiting for trial for 9 months for allegedly stealing a phone. Another was there because her husband accused her of adultery and had paid the police to teach her a lesson. I'd been there for 36 hours when the cell door opened and a new inmate was shoved inside. Kamara. No, I breathed.
What
happened? Her lip was split, one eye swelling shut. They arrested me for conspiracy to commit theft and defamation. Apparently, helping you makes me a criminal too. Despite her injuries, she smiled. But they were too late. I got the files out.
How?
Remember when you called Obinna?
I
was sending encrypted copies to 5 different international journalists. Simultaneously, the story is already running in 3 African news outlets and 2 European newspapers. The FCC has opened an official investigation.
They
can keep us in here, but they can't stop what's already in motion. That evening, we were transferred to Lagos, to the notorious Kirikiri Prison where I'd spent 2 years of my life. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd worked so hard to escape this place, to rebuild my reputation, only to end up back behind the same walls. But something had changed. I had. The first time I entered Kirikiri, I was broken, ashamed, hiding from my guilt and pain. Now I walked through those gates with my head up, knowing I was innocent, knowing the truth would emerge. Inside, the prison population had changed, but the dynamics remained the same: hierarchies, territories, survival strategies. I was placed in the same wing where I'd served my previous sentence. Some of the women remembered me. Adaeze, a woman called out Mama Caro, who'd protected me when I first arrived, teaching me how to navigate prison politics. She was older now, grayer, but her eyes still held that fierce intelligence that had kept her alive for 12 years on a conviction for killing her abusive husband. Mama. I embraced her.
Carefully.
What are you still doing here? Same story. No money for lawyers. No family to fight for me. But you, I saw you on the news before they brought you in. That video they showed at the party, the one they're using to humiliate you. I remember when you first told me that story about your boyfriend who set you up. You swore you were innocent, and I believed you. I'm glad the world is finally hearing the truth. The truth is more complicated than anyone knows. Over the next days, as Kamara and I awaited trial, the story exploded across Nigeria. The television station in Asaba had been shut down, but the international media picked up the story with fury. Headlines screamed, "Nigerian business elite accused of murder and money laundering. Government corruption scandal involves prominent Lagos families. Dead businessman's daughter exposes murder plot." The EFCC raided the Nnamdi family compound and froze their assets. Mr. Akinlade was suspended from practicing law, pending investigation. Ngozi and Chidinma were called in for questioning but released on bail. Their lawyers were too good, their connections too deep. Inside prison, I watched it all unfold through smuggled phones and whispered news from guards. The public opinion was split. Half of Nigeria believed I was a criminal trying to escape justice with wild accusations. The other half demanded answers about how a textile merchant's widow could afford a mansion in Ikoyi and luxury cars while her stepdaughter languished in poverty. Then, 3 weeks into our detention, something shifted. A guard came to my cell late at night. "You have a visitor. A VIP. They've arranged a private meeting." In the visitation room, I found Obinna. He looked devastated, his expensive suit rumpled, his eyes red from crying or lack of sleep, or both. Adaeze. He couldn't meet my eyes at first. I didn't know. I swear to you, I didn't know about any of
it.
Your father is a monster. I've spent weeks going through his files, talking to his accountants, confronting him. Everything you said was true. The money laundering, the government bribes, the murder. His voice broke. My entire life was built on stolen money and death. Everything I am, everything I thought my family was, lies. Why are you here? To help you. I've agreed to testify against my father. I've turned over all the financial records I could find. I've given a full statement to the FCC about everything I've learned. He finally looked up, and I saw genuine anguish there. I know it doesn't fix anything. I know I can't undo the pain my family caused yours. But I needed you to know that I chose the truth over them. I chose you. I didn't ask you to choose me. I know. That's why I'm choosing you. Anyway. He slid an envelope across the table. Inside is a statement from my father's personal secretary. She kept copies of everything, every meeting, every bribe, every threat. She was waiting for someone brave enough to use them. That's you, Adaeze. You're the one who started this, who risked everything for justice. After he left, I opened the envelope. The secretary's statement was damning. Detailed accounts of how they'd planned my father's murder, how they'd tracked me, how they'd coordinated the destruction of my reputation. It even included the name of the man they'd hired to ransack my apartment and spray paint threats on my wall. It was enough to convict them all. The trial began 6 weeks after my arrest. The courtroom in Lagos High Court was packed. Media, curious onlookers. Society figures who'd come to watch the scandal unfold. Ngozi and Chidinma sat, with their legal team, both dressed in white as if their clothes could proclaim their innocence. Emeka Nnamdi was in a separate trial, but the cases were
linked.
The prosecution presented the evidence systematically. The financial records showing the money laundering, the videos of my father accusing Ngozi of poisoning him, Baba Ademola's statement recorded before his death, the emails coordinating the murder. The defense argued that my father had been mentally unstable, that the videos were taken when he was confused from cancer medications, that I was a convicted criminal seeking revenge by manufacturing evidence. Then, Obinna took the stand. He testified for 3 hours, detailing everything he'd learned about his father's business dealings, confirming the authenticity of the financial records, admitting that Chidinma had told him about the plan to humiliate me at the engagement party days before it happened. Why did you go along with it? The prosecutor asked. Because I was a coward. Obinna said, his voice steady. I loved Adaeze, but I loved my family's reputation more. I thought if I stayed quiet, I could have both her love and my family's approval. I was wrong. Love doesn't survive cowardice. Chidinma's face was stone, but I saw Ngozi flinch. The trial lasted 3 months. During that time, more evidence emerged. The police found the man who'd been paid to vandalize my apartment. He confessed everything in exchange for leniency.
A
hospital administrator at LUTH came forward with falsified medical records for my father, showing how Ngozi had paid to create a fake cancer diagnosis. Even some of the victims from my original fraud case gave statements saying they'd always wondered if I'd been the fall guy for a larger scheme. When they returned, the courtroom was silent enough to hear breathing. On the charge of murder in the first degree, we find the defendant, Adaeze Okonkwo, guilty. The courtroom erupted. Ngozi remained motionless, but Chidinma broke down sobbing. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder, we find the defendant, Chidinma Okonkwo, not guilty. Chidinma had turned on her mother in the final week of trial, claiming she'd known nothing about the murder, only about the financial schemes. Her testimony had been convincing enough to save her from the murder charge, though she still faced money laundering charges. As for me and Kamara, all charges were dropped with prejudice. The judge even issued an official apology for our wrongful detention. Walking out of that courtroom as a free woman, truly free for the first time in 10 years, felt surreal. Media cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, but I kept walking until I reached the street where Kamara waited with her car. Where do we go from here? She
asked.
Forward, I said simply. 6 months later, I stood in front of the rebuilt offices of Okonkwo Textiles, the company my father had founded and my stepmother had corrupted. The FCC had seized all assets during the trial, but after the convictions, my father's original will had been honored. Everything came to me. I'd spent the past months cleaning house, firing the corrupt managers Ngozi had installed, rehiring workers who'd been laid off when the company downsized, reviewing every government contract to ensure legitimacy. It was exhausting, overwhelming work, but it was mine. Kamara had won a prestigious journalism award for her investigation. She'd been offered positions at 3 major international news organizations, but turned them all down to start her own investigative media company in Lagos. Someone needs to keep watching the powerful, she'd said. Might as well be me. Obinna had relocated to Accra, working for an NGO focused on government transparency. We exchanged occasional emails, friendly but distant. The love we'd had couldn't survive the weight of what his family had done to mine. Some bridges once burned can't be rebuilt, only mourned and left behind. Chidinma had been sentenced to 5 years for money laundering, though with good behavior, she'd likely serve 3. Sometimes I thought about visiting her in prison, but I couldn't yet. Maybe. Someday I'd be strong enough to offer forgiveness, but that day hadn't come. Ngozi was serving life in Kirikiri Prison. I had visited her once, 3 months after her conviction. She'd looked smaller somehow, diminished without her jewelry and expensive clothes. "Why did you hate me so much?" I'd asked her. She'd stared at me for a long time before answering. "I didn't hate you. I hated that your father loved you more than he ever loved Chidinma. I hated that you were his flesh and blood, while my daughter was just the child I brought into his house. I hated that even when I had his money, his name, his house, I never had what you had, his unconditional
love.
So I took everything else from you to balance the scales. You took my father from me.
Yes.
And I'd do it again." There was no remorse in her eyes, only cold calculation. "In this world, you fight for your children or you lose them." I fought. I lost anyway. I never visited again. Now, standing in front of my father's company, I thought about the cost of justice. Baba Ademola was dead. Chikwudi had disappeared. I'd sent him money and thanks, but he'd chosen a quiet life, away from the spotlight. My relationship with extended family was complicated. Some believed I'd destroyed the Okonkwo name with scandal, while others praised my courage. My phone rang. Mama Caro, released from prison a month ago after a successful appeal that I'd funded and Kamara had publicized. "Adaeze, the literacy center is ready. When can you come cut the ribbon?" I'd started a foundation in my father's name, focused on education and legal aid for women in prison. Mama Caro ran the literacy program, teaching women to read and write, giving them skills for life after release. "Tomorrow," I promised. "I'll be there tomorrow." As I entered the building, I passed a framed photograph of my father in the lobby. I touched it gently, a daily ritual. "I kept my promise, Papa. I found the truth. I protected your legacy." My assistant, a bright young woman named Ifeoma, greeted me with the day's schedule. Board meetings, contract reviews, a consultation with a new government oversight committee designed to prevent the kind of corruption that had nearly destroyed my family. It wasn't the life I'd imagined at 22, standing outside that apartment in Mushin with tons lies still
Fresh.
It wasn't even the life I'd hoped for at 32, believing I could quietly rebuild my reputation and slip into respectable anonymity. This life was harder, more public, more complicated. But it was true. And truth, I'd learned, was worth any price. That evening I attended a gala for the New Women's Prison Reform Initiative. Dignitaries, politicians, activists all gathered to celebrate progress. I gave a speech about second chances, about how society benefits when we invest in rehabilitation rather than just punishment. As I spoke, I saw faces in the crowd, women who'd served time, women who'd been judged, women who'd survived. Despite a system designed to break them, they understood what I'd learned, that redemption isn't a destination but a daily choice. You wake up and choose to be better than yesterday. You choose honesty over convenience, courage over comfort, truth over peace. After the gala, I drove through Lagos at night, past the gleaming towers of Victoria Island, through the chaotic streets of Surulere where I'd grown up, along the highways where vendors sold their wares by flashlight. This city had witnessed my destruction and my resurrection. It had judged me, abandoned me, and ultimately vindicated me. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Miss Okonkwo, my name is Blessing. I was convicted of fraud 5 years ago, a situation similar to yours. I just saw your interview on Channels TV. Thank you for telling the truth. You've given women like me hope that we're not our worst mistakes. God bless you." I saved the message, adding it to dozens of others I'd received in recent months, each one a reminder of why the fight had been worth it. When I arrived home, a modest apartment in Lucky, comfortable, but not ostentatious. I found a package at my door.
Inside
Was a small wooden box with a note. Your father commissioned this before.
he died.
I was supposed to give it to you on your wedding day, but I think you
Need it now.
Mr. Boniface, Papa's old friend and jeweler. I opened the box with trembling hands. Inside lay a gold necklace with a pendant shaped like the Sankofa bird, the adinkra symbol of learning from the past to build the future. On the back, an engraving in Papa's handwriting. For Adaeze, my brave daughter.
The past
Does not define us, but it teaches us to fly. Love always, Papa. Tears came then, the kind I'd held back through courtrooms and confrontations, through prison cells and public scrutiny. I cried for my father, for the years stolen from us both. I cried for the girl I'd been who'd trusted too easily and paid too dearly. I cried for Ngozi, twisted by jealousy into a murderer. I cried for Chidinma, raised to value ambition over integrity. But I also cried with relief. The battle was over. The truth had emerged. Justice, imperfect and incomplete as it always is, had been served. The next morning, I wore Papa's necklace to the opening of the literacy center. Media cameras captured the moment I cut the ribbon, surrounded by formerly incarcerated women who are now teachers, counselors, and advocates. Mama Caro stood beside me, her weathered face beaming with pride. Your father would be proud, she whispered. I hope so. Kamara arrived with her camera crew, documenting the opening for follow-up story. You know what I love about this? She said as we watched women stream into the center, eager to learn. You didn't just fight for yourself. You built something that will help thousands of women who face the same judgment you did. It's what Papa would have done.
He
always said that true wealth isn't what you keep, but what you give. Later that afternoon, I visited the grave, where my father rested in Ikoyi Cemetery. The marble headstone I'd commissioned was simple but elegant. Chief Emmanuel Okonkwo, beloved father, honest businessman, champion of justice. Your truth lives on. I placed fresh flowers on the grave and sat on the bench nearby, watching Lagos traffic crawl past the cemetery gates. I met with your lawyer last week. Papa, I spoke aloud, finding comfort in the one-sided conversation. The real one, not accolade. We're reviewing all the contracts you signed. In your final year, some were legitimate, some were forgeries. We're unwinding the fraud piece by piece. Your name will be cleared completely. A breeze rustled the leaves overhead, and I smiled. Ngozi tried to destroy your legacy and mine, but she forgot something important. You taught me to be resilient. You taught me that integrity matters more than comfort. Those lessons kept me alive when everything else was taken from me. I stood to leave, touching the headstone. One last time. I'm going to be okay, Papa. More than okay. I'm going to build something beautiful from the ashes she left. Watch me. 3 years later, the Okonkwo Foundation graduation ceremony was held at the Civic Center in Victoria Island.
200
women formerly incarcerated, formerly homeless, formerly written off by society, sat in caps and gowns, having completed training programs in various trades, tailoring, catering, computer programming, small business management. I stood at the podium, looking out at faces that mirrored my own journey. 3 years ago, I stood in a courtroom and heard the truth proclaimed. I was innocent. But that verdict didn't automatically restore my reputation or rebuild my life. I had to do that myself, one day at a time, one decision at a time, one act of courage at a time. You are all here today because you've done the same. You've faced judgment, survived hardship, and chosen to rebuild. Society told you that you were finished, that your mistakes defined
you.
You proved them wrong. My father used to say that the Sankofa bird flies forward while looking back, not to stay in the past, but to learn from it. Each of you embodies that wisdom. You've looked honestly at your Past, learned from it, and now you're flying forward. As I spoke, I saw Kamara in the audience, filming for the documentary she was producing about the foundation. Beside her sat several of the board members we'd recruited, successful businesswomen, lawyers, and activists who believed in second chances. Obinna was there too, visiting from Accra. For the ceremony, we'd gradually rebuilt a friendship over the years, though the romantic possibility was long buried. He now worked with anti-corruption initiatives across West Africa, using his family's disgrace as motivation to create systemic change. Even Ani Chioma had come, the same aunt who'd rejected me during my lowest point. She'd reached out 6 months ago with a tearful apology, admitting that fear of association had made her cruel.
I'd
accepted her apology, understanding that forgiveness is easier when you're no longer desperate for survival. After the ceremony, as graduates celebrated with their families, a young woman approached me nervously. "Miss Adaeze, my name is Chinyere.
I
Was convicted of stealing from my employer 2 years ago. I didn't do it, it was
my supervisor who framed me.
but I had no money for a good lawyer, no family to fight for me. Your foundation paid for my appeal, and last month my conviction was overturned." She was crying now, and I found myself tearing up too. "I just wanted to thank you, and to ask, how did you survive it? The judgment, the shame, the loneliness?"
How did
"You keep going?" I thought about her question carefully before answering. "I survived because I decided that other people's judgment couldn't define my worth. I survived because I found my purpose, not in revenge, but in building something meaningful from the pain.
and
I survived because I learned that resilience isn't about never falling.
it's
About getting up every single time you do. I want to be like you."
someday," Chinyere said.
"No," I replied gently. "Be like yourself. Take your own journey. Your story is yours alone, honor it by living it fully." That evening, I hosted a small dinner at my home for the Foundation's core team. Over jollof rice and fried plantains, we celebrated not just the graduation, but the 3-year journey that had brought us here. "Remember when we started?" Mama Carl laughed. "We had 1 room, 5 students, and dreams bigger than Lagos Island. And now we have 3 centers across Nigeria, partnerships with 4 prisons, and a waiting list of women who want to join," Kamara added. "Adaeze, you've built something extraordinary." "We built it," I corrected. "Every person at this table fought for this. Every graduate fought for
This
this isn't my victory, it's ours." My phone buzzed with an email from the Ministry of Justice. They wanted to consult with the Foundation about nationwide prison reform, using our model as a template. It was validation of everything we'd worked for. But the message that mattered most came later that night, as I was preparing for bed. An email from Chidinma, writing, "From prison. Adaeze, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But my counselor suggested I write to you as part of my rehabilitation process. I've had 3 years to think about what we did to you, to Uncle Emmanuel. 3 years to face the truth about who I was. Raised to be someone who valued status over people, who believed winning justified any cost. Mother is bitter in prison still, convinced she was justified. But I see it differently now. We destroyed you because we were afraid of our own inadequacy. You were kind, intelligent, loved, everything Mother wanted me to be, but never taught me to be. So we eliminated the comparison by eliminating you. I'm learning to sew here in prison. There's a poetry to it, taking separate pieces and creating something whole. That's what you've done with your life after we tore it apart. You took the pieces and made something beautiful. I hope that someday, when I'm released, I can learn from your example. I want to be someone who builds instead of destroys."
"I'm sorry."
Those words are insufficient, but they're all I have. Chidinma. I read the letter 3 times, feeling the complexity of emotions it stirred. anger at what she'd taken from me, sadness for the twisted family dynamics that had shaped her, and, surprisingly, a small seed of hope that people could change. I didn't respond immediately. Some wounds need time before they're ready for reconciliation. But I saved the letter, knowing that perhaps one day I might be ready to respond. 5 years after the trial, the documentary Sankofa, Adaeze Flight premiered at the African International Film Festival in Lagos. Kamara had spent 2 years creating a comprehensive film about my story, the corruption that surrounded it, and the Foundation's impact on prison reform. Watching my life unfold on screen was surreal. The film opened with footage from that disastrous engagement party, the moment my world shattered on those LED screens. Then it traced backwards and forwards. My childhood, my first conviction, prison, my father's death, the investigation, the trial, the rebuilding. But the film's power was in the stories of other women, dozens of formerly incarcerated women who'd rebuilt their lives, who spoke honestly about judgment, survival, and redemption. When the credits rolled, the audience, a mix of activists, celebrities, government officials, and everyday Nigerians, stood in applause that lasted 5 minutes. During the Q&A session, a young woman in the audience stood. "Miss Adaeze, your story is inspiring, but do you ever worry that by constantly telling it, you'll always be defined by your past?" It was a fair question, one I'd asked myself many times.
I used to worry about that. I
answered honestly. I used to think that redemption meant erasing the past, becoming someone so different that nobody would remember the girl who went to prison. But I've learned that my past is part of me, not all of me, but an essential part. It taught me compassion, resilience, and the value of truth. If I hide it, I diminish myself. If I own it, I transform it into something useful. Another person asked, "Do you hate your stepmother?" I paused, considering.
hate
Requires energy I'd rather spend elsewhere.
Ngozi made choices that destroyed
Lives, including her own. She'll spend the rest of her life in prison. That's justice. Not something I need to supplement with hatred. What I feel is sadness for what might have been if she'd chosen love over fear. After the premiere, at the reception held at the Civic Center, I found myself surrounded by well-wishers, donors wanting to support the foundation, and media requesting interviews. It was overwhelming, but purposeful. Each conversation was an opportunity to advocate for the women we served. Obinna appeared at my elbow with a glass of champagne. "Congratulations. The film is powerful. Thank you for participating in it. Your testimony about confronting your father's legacy, that was brave. I learned from the best," he smiled. "You taught me that truth costs something, but lies cost more." We stood together companionably, watching the crowd. Our relationship had evolved into something I valued more than romance, a genuine friendship built on mutual respect and shared commitment to justice. "I heard Chidinma is being released next month," Obinna said carefully.
Yes.
"She's completed her sentence and participated in every rehabilitation program available. I've been told she wants to apologize in person. Will you see her?" "I don't know yet.
Forgiveness is
complicated. I've forgiven what she did to me, but I haven't forgotten. Maybe that's enough. Maybe she needs to prove through actions, not just words, that she's changed." The evening ended with an unexpected announcement. The governor of Lagos State had established the Adaeze Okonkwo Prize for Business Integrity, an annual award honoring ethical business practices. I was asked to serve on the selection committee. "Your father's name will be remembered for righteousness, not for the corruption that tried to attach itself to him," the governor said during his speech. "And his daughter has ensured that his legacy continues to fight for justice." As I drove home that night, exhausted but fulfilled, I reflected on the strange mathematics of loss and gain. I'd lost my father, my innocence, years of my life to judgment and survival. But I'd gained purpose, resilience, a community of women fighting for each other, and the knowledge that truth, however painful, is always worth pursuing. My phone buzzed with a text from Mama. Caro, just watched the film with the other women at the center. We're all
Crying.
Thank you for telling our stories with such dignity. You've given us back something prison tried to take, our humanity. I pulled over to respond properly, tears streaming down my face. You gave me back mine first, Mama. Everything I built started with the lessons you taught me in that prison cell. Survive with dignity, help others when you can, never let them break your spirit. I'm just paying it forward. At home, I stood in front of the mirror, wearing Papa's Sankofa necklace. The woman looking back at me bore little resemblance to the terrified girl arrested at 22 or the desperate woman publicly humiliated at 32. This woman had scars, yes, but also strength. She'd walked through fire and emerged not unburned, but tempered. I thought about all the women who'd reached out over the years, some from prison, some newly released, some wrongly convicted, some guilty, but trying to change. Each one saw in my story proof that you could survive shame and build something beautiful from the ruins. That was my father's true legacy, and now it was mine. The stubborn belief that every person deserves a second chance, that mistakes don't define us forever, and that courage is simply choosing integrity when it's easier to choose safety. Legos spread out below my window, millions of lives intersecting in chaos and beauty.
Somewhere in this city, a
woman was being arrested unjustly. Another was being released from prison, uncertain of her future. Another was being judged for her past, wondering if she'd ever escape its shadow. I couldn't save them all, but I could build institutions that gave them fighting chances. I could tell my story so they'd know survival was possible. I could create pathways from judgment to redemption, from shame to dignity, from survival to thriving. My phone rang one last time before bed. An unknown number, which I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. Hello? Miss Adaeze?
You don't know me. My
name is Fatima. I was arrested last week for something I didn't do. I'm scared, and I don't know what to do. Someone in the cell told me about you, about how you survived and fought back. Can you help me? I was tired. It had been a long, emotional day. Tomorrow I had 3 meetings, 2 site visits, and a radio interview. Every fiber of my being wanted to sleep. But I heard my father's voice in my memory. We help because we can, not because it's convenient. Yes, Fatima, I said, reaching for my notebook. Tell me everything. We'll figure this out together. Because that's what redemption really means, not just saving yourself, but reaching back to help others climb out of the same pit that once held you. Not just surviving, but ensuring that your survival has purpose beyond yourself. The past had tried to destroy me.
my
Stepmother had sent me away, thinking she could erase me from the story.
but
I'd returned, not as the frightened girl she'd manipulated, but as a woman who'd transformed pain into purpose. I was Adaeze Okonkwo, daughter of Emmanuel, survivor of injustice, architect of second chances. And my story finally was mine to tell. The end. If you loved this story of resilience, betrayal, and redemption, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear that second chances are possible. Comment below which part of Adaeze's journey touched you most. Remember, you are not your worst moment. You are what you build from the lessons it taught you.
keep flying.
Forward like the Sankofa bird. Until next time on K Smart's Mythic Tales.